Hi, good morning, and welcome to our meditation on grace. We've been meditating on the epistle of Paul to the Roman Church on grace, and we have seen the results of this wonderful thing called grace, of the results in our lives as we were taught by God, and we were redeemed by the blood of the Lamb, and how God now is helping us to walk or to run with Him. It's the work of God's grace in our lives that will allow us to walk. We see the Christian walk as a walk in a desert with God. It's a very difficult place to live, but we are there with God. Moses, when he was at the feet of the mountain, and the people had decided to go back to worship an Egyptian god, and then there was judgment from God upon the people. Lots of people were killed, and Moses tells God, if you don't go with me, we are going to stay here. We cannot go forward without you. So you cannot go forward without God's grace. You cannot walk, you cannot run. And as you walk in this desert, or you run towards your goal, the goal that God has given us, we are not on our own. We are walking together with other people. And some people cannot go as fast as we can. So this exhortation today, that is actually following from the exhortation of chapter 14, it is about that. Let's read together Romans chapter 15, verses 1 to 3. We who are strong ought to bear with the failings of the weak, and not to please ourselves. Each of us should please our neighbors for their good, to build them up. For even Christ did not please himself, but as it is written, the insults of those who insult you have fallen on me. So there are three lessons that we can learn from these verses today. The first one, that if you consider yourself strong as you walk with your brother and your sister, you should bear with them, should bear with the failings of the weak. You should bear with them. You should be a support to them. That's the idea here, is to be a support. The other idea, the other way of thinking, that we are sent by God to demolish, to destroy, that's actually from the devil, is not in the gospel. In the gospel, a disciple of Christ will always be there to build up, never to destroy. So here, when people are weak, and we believe and we think, as Paul is saying here, because he's saying he is strong, and other people in the church are strong as well. And he's saying, we who are strong, we ought to bear, we should bear with the failings of the weak ones. We should be there to support them. Because what is the vision that God has given his church? The vision that God has given his church is of a people that are walking and working together. Is the fact that we are together. We are one body. And if my right hand, decide to fight against the body, to do the opposite of what it is supposed to do, it will mean the destruction of the body. We are not in competition in the body. We are working and walking together. So that's the first thing. The second thing here is that we should not please ourselves. And that, again, to please ourselves is very common, it's very normal, it's proper to our race, isn't it? We are people who normally think about themselves first, about their club, about their ethnic group, their families, their nations, us first. There is even a slogan in a certain country, this and that first. My kingdom first. Well, in God's kingdom is God first, and we cannot just please ourselves. We are not here to please ourselves. We are here to be for the glory of God. So that is the second thing. Once we have decided to be a support to the other and not to please myself, I'll be able to please my neighbor. As it says in verse 2, each of us should please our neighbors for their good. And it's nothing to do with pleasing men, as Paul says in Galatians 1:10, I am now trying to win the approval of human beings or of God. Or am I trying to please people? If I was still trying to please people, I would not be a servant of Christ. So these are two different things. To please your neighbor in Romans 15 and to please people, to please men, is two different things. To please men here is a political thing, isn't it? It's when everything you say is politically correct, so you don't want to annoy other people with the gospel you're supposed to preach. So we are just going to preach the gospel that people wants to hear. It's nothing to do with pleasing your neighbor in chapter 15. There is another text in 1 Thessalonians 2:4. On the contrary, we speak as those those approved by God to be entrusted with the gospel. We are not trying to please people, but to please God who tests our hearts. So we are not pleasing people. We are preaching God's gospel, and God is the gospel. But in Romans chapter 15, he is talking about pleasing our neighbors for their good, being a source of encouragement. And the reason is, at the end of verse 2, he says, to build them up. Because as I said before, we support, we don't destroy, and then we build people up. And Paul is going to give us the main reason for this in chapter 15, verse 3. For even Christ did not please himself, but as it is written, the insults of those who insult you have fallen on me. But that's the meditation for tomorrow. Christ has taken all the insults that were going to fall on you. God bless you.